Hello and welcome to another episode of Starside Chat. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron, and with me as always is my co-host, dual host, Zach. How's it going, Zach?
I've never been called a dual host before.
We're dual hosting this.
We're dual hosting. It's like dual wielding, but...
Not to jump into... dual wielding always makes me think of Halo. And did you see that Halo cooperative test they did this past week?
No.
They did like an hour-long stream showing off like what it means, and it's interesting because I guess it's not going to be a thing like previous Halos where if you are playing co-op, you're only progressing one person's story. You're both going to be progressing your own campaigns somehow as you play. I don't know. It's complicated. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I might actually get into Halo when the co-op drops, because my one friend who's really into Halo has been waiting to play it until it's available for multiplayer. But
yeah,
that's the first piece of news we're talking about today, I guess. It's not even on our show notes.
Did they ever add like any DLC for the campaign?
I do not believe so, and I don't know if they are going to. As far as I know, this is the first major content drop that's not like multiplayer related that's happening. I think it's happening late July, August is when it's actually going live.
Because when I was playing that game, I was like, it seems like this would be really cool for them to just add some like episodic DLC because it's sort of semi-open worldy. And so just having that big map to roam around and like take out enemies and stuff, I feel like if they just added like little things to it here and there, it would be fun to jump back into and just run around and do stuff in that world. But whatever.
I agree. And so we talked about this a little bit before the podcast, but I am building a new computer this week. Amazon Prime Day was this past week, and I had a bunch of things earmarked as things I wanted to purchase, and like 3 of them came up as on Prime Day sale. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. So I will have a rig that will play Halo pretty well, I think, and also Starfield in the coming days. But I'm excited about it, and I will have a review of, I guess, computer components. I don't know. Probably I'll just
or
tell
like
you
the computer building experience in 2022.
Yeah, I guess it's a weird time to build a computer because you have to pick between DDR4 RAM and DDR5 RAM, and that kind of dictates what motherboard you get, because the motherboards are not backwards compatible. They either have slots for 4 or 5. So 4 is like very mature because it's been out for a long time and you can get it pretty cheaply, but 5 is like the new thing on the block and it's not mature at all yet. In fact, if you look at YouTube, most of the videos that are like, should I pick DDR4 or 5, will tell you to pick DDR4, because like if you get like adding that to the build and also getting a motherboard that is DDR5 compatible adds like $400 to like $700, I feel like. Jeez. It's expensive. Like DDR5 RAM is not cheap and it's hard to get a hold of, and the motherboards that support it are also like pretty high end and have like a lot of features. So I went with a DDR4 board and I'm pretty happy with that. My computer I'm having right now has like super old RAM. It only has like 8 gigs of DDR3. So it'll be an upgrade regardless, and going to a 12th gen Alder Lake CPU is going to be great for me as well. But I'm excited. I haven't built a computer in like 10 years maybe. So at my jobs, I've built them a ton. I've probably built over 100, probably maybe over 200 computers just in like in work settings. But
well, if you want to set one of those aside for me, I'll take it.
The ones I built for work settings were very, very bare bones. But
not gaming ready.
No, not at all. There was only like 1 or 2 that were like pretty crazy that actually had like GPUs and stuff that I had to build. But most of them were just like very bare bones workstations that were like going in dentists' offices or stuff like that. But yeah, that TBD on. I'll let you guys know the saga of that next week. Hopefully, I'll be on new hardware next week when we record. So we'll see.
Well, we can jump right into the news this week because we do have quite a bit, and it's some pretty interesting stuff. In fact, the very first one is pretty exciting. The ESA says that E3 is really coming back in 2023. Like, we kind of suspected that was the case, and there was talk about that, but they, I guess, officially announced that that was the case.
I love E3. This is great. I think I pitched to you when we were thinking about this YouTube channel to call it E365 and just talk about E3 365 days a year. But first of all, I'm glad we didn't do that because E3 went away for a while.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I am apprehensive about this until they get commits from some companies. Like, I think Microsoft will definitely say, like, sure, we'll log on to this. But PlayStation, I feel like, has been pretty MIA these past couple of years. So if they come out and they're like, it's like an old E3, like, we're going to have the PlayStation press conference, we're going to have the Microsoft press conference, and we're going to have something from Nintendo. It's going to be like the old days. I'm going to be super excited. But I don't know if that's the case. And also, Jeff Keighley is doing his thing next year, and it is also going to be live and in person, similar to this, probably around the exact same time. So I don't know. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think they're going to compete, or do you think they're going to go like 1 week and then the next week is going to be the other thing?
I don't know, but I'm kind of fully on board with like competition in the like games showcase situation.
As long as it's all happening concurrently. The thing I didn't like about Summer Games Fest, or whatever it's called, is like it seemingly takes place over the whole summer, which I don't want. I want everything condensed into like a 5-day period.
Yeah, and some of that is just because everybody wants to sort of separate from the pack so that they're a little bit less overshadowed by other events happening. That's
my fear, is I feel like it's all going to be stretched out. And I want them to be like, realize like, hey, E3 is coming back. We really need to it's a return to form. So like Microsoft and PlayStation will consent to having press conferences under the umbrella of E3, which I guess is a little bummer for Keighley. I don't know what his plan is going to be if that does happen. Hopefully he doesn't just like crash and burn.
Yeah, I can't remember because I know Summer Games Fest has been around for a little while. Was it only like as a digital thing because of, the pandemic, or was there a year when they were both happening at the same time as like live showcases?
I don't believe so, because I think the first time that Summer Games Fest happened was the year that Keighley was on Twitter like, hey, this is the first E3 I'm not going to host, and I feel passionately about it. And that was the year it shut down because of COVID. And then he announced Summer Games Fest. So I don't think it has ever had an in-person thing concurrent with E3. But I think somebody asked him, I saw an article where somebody asked Keighley, like, hey, are you worried about E3 coming back next year? It's going to kind of be like competition for Summer Games Fest. And he was basically just like, I don't care.
He's still going to do his thing.
I'm going to do my thing. It's fine.
Yeah.
So I don't know what he is thinking, but I guess it's all happening. I mean, I guess, yeah, I'm with you. I'm pro competition in the space and everything happening concurrently. But
I would love to see all of those guys trying to outdo each other with like crazy gaming showcases. But
Keighley is a showman. I mean, like, I remember maybe it was one of the first Game Awards. Might have been the first Game Awards where he had like the head of Nintendo, the head of PlayStation, the head of Microsoft, all on stage at the same time. Mm-hmm. That was crazy to see.
Yeah, almost never expected to see that. But yeah, to have the three of them like on stage at the same time, like taking part in like a joint thing was pretty cool.
He pulled it off.
Yeah. So he does have good ideas when it comes to these shows. So
he unveiled Elden Ring also. I mean, he had that pod on stage. He has the ability to get good reveals. And
he does have the friends, so yeah, he can call on those people.
I guess we'll see what happens. I think maybe people were a little down on his event this year after the Microsoft one, which just blew everything else out of the water. But
I mean, I was definitely down on it.
Yeah. He does what he can. Hopefully the Game Awards will be a return to form, and we'll have some cool stuff there.
Yeah. The big question is, as you said already, is whether he can get like the other publishers to join. Because if
Yeah.
Nintendo wants to continue doing digital showcases instead of like live,
Which
uh,
I'm sure.
which
Yeah.
I'm sure they will. The question is, will they, if E3 is back, will they kind of go do their Treehouse Live stuff that they used to do?
Mm.
And will Sony come back? Because Sony in 2019, the year before the pandemic, was like, "Nah, we're out." And
Yeah.
so I feel like you're gonna have to go to those two and try to get them back. So I don't know if that'll happen or not, but like Microsoft for sure seems like all in
Yeah.
on like
They're on
this
board.
stuff.
They've always
So
got something to talk
you
about.
don't have
They
to worry
are
about them.
good to go.
Yeah. Um,
Speaking of
but
things that are good to go,
speaking of Sony,
is that exactly what you're going to say?
yeah, I was trying to make a segue into Sony. So, God of War Ragnarok has been given a
Yes.
release date. There was a brief little cinematic trailer that Sony put out, and this had kind of leaked, so it was a little bit of them just being like, yeah, here's a little 30-second cinematic thing that gives their official release date, since it had already been sort of leaked that they were planning on releasing the game in November, so
Mm-hmm.
not much seen here, but it gets a November 9th release date, which is pretty cool. They did also show off the like collector's editions. They had two
Yes.
different
Those were
ones.
crazy to see.
And it's weird. I don't like when they do like multiple collector's editions. Just make one, first of all. Because then you got like the hardcore fans who do want that stuff feel a little bit of FOMO. They're like, should I buy both of them then? Like to get the entire package, or like what's the deal here? So that feels not great, but also it's one of those, we're in a weird situation now where you buy a collector's edition and you get like the metal game case, but there's no disc in it because you have to
Yeah.
serve both audiences, the people who bought the digital only console and the people who bought the disc based version. And the only way to do that in a way that both of those customers can still access the game is to go digital. So
Yeah.
they did this with the Mass Effect one, where except the Mass Effect one didn't even include a digital code, which was weird. So it was like you could buy the expensive collector's edition box set and still have to go buy the game separately. So at least that's not the case with God of War Ragnarok. You do get a code for the game, but it's going to be digital. So if you want a physical copy of it, you're still going to have to buy that separately, I guess. But
What do you think of the cinematic trailer? Did you like that big wolf?
yeah, I know there was a big wolf in Thor Ragnarok. I'm not.
Oh, was there?
Yeah, I don't remember. Well, remember the Hulk fights him, so I don't. Like, I'm not good on.
Oh,
like
yeah. I
the-
forgot about that.
Although I think that was a creature that was with Hela. So, but I don't know the lore, or
I don't remember.
I'm not really good with this stuff, but yeah, me. So I guess you'll fight that as well. And
Looks good, I gotta say.
They
Looks
said
great.
it was gonna be a duology, right? So this is not a trilogy of games. So this
Really?
is
That's
supposed to be
interesting.
the last one, which I guess if you're gonna do Ragnarok, that would be the last one. But
What a weird move to do. I feel like, why not make it a trilogy? I mean, the first one did so well, and I assume this one's going to knock it out of the park. Why wouldn't you do a third one?
yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're just
It also, I mean, spoilers for the end of the first one, but you get to see like all the other pantheons. You like walk around that room and you see like other pantheons, and one of them was like Egypt, and that looked super cool. And so I assumed that in subsequent games we were going to get to go to different places, not just like Norse stuff.
yeah. Well, I assume that's the case, and maybe that's why they're saying this is a duology, because this is the Norse version is a duology, but then they'll take these characters and move them
Oh.
forward to a different location.
Oh, that's interesting.
So maybe
Yeah,
they do
I'm into that.
two games in Egypt as well, two games, in these different.
I think that would be
areas.
great.
So it's not necessarily the end of this iteration of God of War, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like maybe the end of like the Norse location.
Yeah.
So
The end of the kid's story, perhaps.
yeah, something like that. But speaking of Sony stuff, we're still speaking about Sony stuff, I guess. Forspoken was delayed until January, which I think was like, I feel like I heard they said that they thought the game was basically done and they're just like polishing it. And so they delayed it for strategic reasons, which I guess I thought this was supposed to come out in like August, September, maybe.
Do you think they got all the do you think they heard all the notes from people that all of the dialogue seemed awful and they're trying to re-record it all?
Well, I feel like they wouldn't have said specifically that it was done and they were just polishing it if that was the case, but
yeah,
maybe. I feel like moving it to January to get out of the way of other stuff makes sense if there's another, because God of War is not till November. I forget when they originally were planning on releasing the game.
What's your excitement level for this game?
It's one of those games I think the gameplay could be fun, but like I'm not super drawn to like the character or the story.
Yeah, I don't love. I guess the main character is like English, and it's like, I don't know. It seems like a pretty generic fantasy setting, which isn't terrible, but I don't know what about the world doesn't like vibe with me. But it's just not a place I want to explore for whatever reason. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'll see more of it, and it'll be interesting to me. But
maybe it's
the main character just does not seem interesting to me, and the setting is not interesting.
Maybe it's like a Sonic Frontier situation where the area they showed just looks kind of generic fantasy, and so it's not.
And actually, yeah, that might be very an apt description, because it is. I mean, the mobility options and that look very cool, like you're like jumping along and stuff. But it is just kind of a barren wasteland. But maybe that's just one area. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and that's why I thought like the gameplay looked cool, because like the movement and all of that seems really cool and really fun. So I'm curious to see more of it, but yeah, like some of the stuff they shown already has made me not that excited about it. But
you know what game had great movement? Bayonetta 2.
Yeah, well, so you're pretty excited about Bayonetta 3 then.
Yeah, Bayonetta 2 was great. It was I got it on Switch and I loved it. You could turn into a panther to go super fast, and you had butterfly wings if you wanted to fly. Just like, I guess I haven't played many stylish action games like that. Like, I dipped my toes into Devil May Cry and whatnot, but Bayonetta is just so insane. Like, the things that happen moment to moment in that game are just like blow my mind. And so I'm very excited for Bayonetta 3. It has been in development, or like, you know, they haven't had a release date for it for a long time, but Nintendo just dropped a trailer on Twitter, like not in a direct, this past week, and was like, hey, it's coming out October 28th. And that's cool. But we were talking about this off pod about how this confirms your theory that probably they don't have another direct in line, because they definitely would have saved this for a direct if they had one upcoming, because this would have been a great, like, one more thing, or even a great thing to start the direct with. Like, this is a highly anticipated game, and to finally have a release date would be a great thing to put in direct, but they just tweeted it.
Yeah, they just,
which is weird.
Just put it out there on like Twitter or something. Here you go.
But no, I am very excited for this. I think it's going to be great. I'll pick it up. Bayonetta is a great series.
Is it the kind of thing where I will feel like I don't know what's going on if I haven't played the first two?
Yes.
Okay.
1,000%. But I think if you had played the first two, it would still be the case.
Okay.
All you really need to know is, like, she's a witch from hell, but she's good. I'm thinking in my mind about how to explain this, and I don't think that I can. But it's very good, and the gameplay is very, very fun, and it's great. She has high heels that are guns. It's wonderful.
And I understand that her, like, clothing is just her hair.
That's correct. Yes, her whole thing is her hair, and then when she has the ability to turn her hair into a giant kaiju beast that you can battle other giant things with. And when that happens, all of her clothes rip off and become hair. But Uh, they did add a new feature in Bayonetta 3 where it removes all of the nudity.
It's called Naive Angel Mode.
Yes. So if you're interested, I don't know who this is for, but if you are someone who wants to play Bayonetta 3,
if her clothing is her hair, then she's technically naked anyway the whole time.
it's true. I agree 100%. I think it's going to be great. I'm very excited for it. Excited to play it. Bayonetta 2 is, I feel like it's one of the first games I ever played for Switch, but I don't know when it released. But I remember I only had like Breath of the Wild, and then I got Bayonetta 2 or 3. No, 2.
Did you play the first one?
I did a long time ago. I think it came out on PlayStation or Xbox 360 because I remember playing it in like high school. I played it with like a group of friends, and we were all just like blown away by how insane it was. At the end of it, I can't even describe what's happening, but it gets very crazy every time. Like the climaxes of all of those games, or at least the first two, I guess, are just like next level insane, and it's very satisfying to complete and watch the story unfold. And the voice acting is truly next level.
Yeah, I don't know if I am that excited about it. I may play it just because it'll be like the hot thing that everybody's talking about when it comes out. But I think I would be more excited about Astral Chain 2, which is another Platinum Games. Even though I haven't played the first one, but that game looked really cool to me, and I've heard nothing but good things about it. It makes me
that kind of
want to
came
play
and
it.
went. I always meant to play it, but I just never got around to it.
Yeah, it's on my list of games to play one day, and I have not done it yet, but it looks very cool to me.
I don't remember. Did you own a Sega Genesis when you were a child?
I did not. I thought you did.
I did, yes. I loved it.
So are you excited if I told you that the Sega Genesis Mini 2 is up for pre-order right now, and it will launch on October 27th?
Did they, is there a list of games? Oh, here they are. Let me take a look at these games real quick. I have heard of one of these. No, I've heard of two of these. 3. I've heard of 3 of these games. I don't know. I played a lot of Genesis when I was a child, but I played like way more of it, I feel like, in college, because I just downloaded a Genesis emulator and would just like play Genesis on my laptop and listen to podcasts for like hours at a time. So I don't know. Besides Sonic, I'm trying to think of like other memorable. I mean, Altered Beast is great. It's not on this. I think it was maybe on the first Genesis Mini.
Yeah, I don't remember what was on that one.
I don't think I need a physical thing to play Genesis games on. Genesis is one of those things, just like an old Nintendo or like Super Nintendo, where ROMs are very easy to find online if I need to have that itch scratched. But
yeah, it's more for collectors. Like I have the Super NES Mini, and I really like that.
Yeah, that would be something I would pick up. Yeah, that is a super cool little piece of. But I don't know that I have nostalgia for the piece of hardware itself. For the Genesis. Yeah,
it's one of those things that would probably be cool to have on a shelf if you're like really nostalgic for like having that as a child. I think the only game I recognize on this is Outrun, and aside from like Sonic, but
yeah, Sonic. What about Vector Man? Did you ever play Vector Man?
Nope. Is that kind of a Mega Man style game?
I believe, maybe I'm misremembering actually. Hold on. Let me confirm. Yeah, Vector Man was crazy because it was semi 3D. You were just a series of green circles. I played the first one. I don't think I ever played the second one, which I guess came out a year later. But that was one, Vector Man was one I would rent from Blockbuster all the time, not to age myself. But I would pick up, I guess owning a Genesis ages me. But yeah, Vector Man was cool. A lot of these other ones I am unfamiliar with, I have to say. But I mean, Sonic 3D Blast was interesting, and as a child, it blew my mind because it was in 3D. But yeah, this is not something I'll probably pick up. But I have nostalgia for Genesis.
If you are into this, it does come with a 6-button controller as opposed to the 3-button controller, which I think came with the first Sega Genesis Mini.
I
So
did
I mean,
have a 6 button when I was a child, and I loved to play Sonic with it because it was easier to speed up with it.
to be honest, I think it's a weird thing that I think Nintendo is maybe gonna stop doing is releasing these mini consoles. It's a
I
weird
mean,
thing to have two of them, like a mini one and a mini two. Like,
yeah, I agree.
are you gonna
Seems like a cash grab.
Are you gonna get both of them? You have them sitting side by side, even though it's like the same thing.
I
But they
really,
have different
I
games. It's like, why wouldn't you make like a version of this that just has Wi-Fi and a little bit of storage space, and just
yeah,
release like some additional games, and then like
it's
have
crazy to
a
me.
6 button controller that you can sell separately?
It's crazy to me that Nintendo stopped doing this. Like they were primed to do
Well,
the N64 mini, which I feel like would have. So I probably would have bought that, frankly.
I would have too, but yeah, it's a weird thing because there's so much overlap with Nintendo Online now with what they're doing with that. Like they made the NES
Yeah,
and the Super NES Mini before Nintendo Online was a thing,
it's true.
and
That's a very good
now
point.
that they have Nintendo Online and they want you to subscribe to that, there's kind of, unless you're just nostalgic for the hardware, there's not really a reason to get one of those because most of
Yeah,
what's on offer there is also available on Nintendo Online. I think there is like maybe some stuff that's on the Super NES Mini that's not on Switch Online, but like I don't know. It's a weird area, and it made me think about that with the Genesis Mini too, because the they do have Genesis stuff on Nintendo Online now.
yeah,
But I mean,
yeah. For the
Sega's
premium,
separate, obviously, from Nintendo, so they're kind of doing this for their own sake. But yeah, if you pay for the premium version of Nintendo Online, you get Genesis stuff. And so, how much of this is going to be overlap there as well? Or will these games eventually end up making their way to Nintendo Online?
it's a good question. It's a very good question.
So, I don't know. I think they're cool. I like them. I would like it, even though there is that overlap, I would still buy a 64 mini if they made one, just for the nostalgia of the hardware itself as well. But especially if they had some games on there that were not on Switch Online. But
Let's talk about Nintendo. I think.
speaking of Nintendo, because we did kind of speak
Yeah.
about Nintendo, they have acquired, or they will acquire soon, Dynamo Pictures, and they're going to rename it Nintendo Pictures. So apparently, this is the studio that made some Pikmin short movies. I was not aware of that, but apparently they did. And so they are buying them so that they can make, you know, Nintendo movies based on Nintendo properties.
Do you think
Which,
they are having a bad time with Illumination? Like, why wouldn't they just continue their partnership with Illumination?
because well, it's one of those things where I guess maybe they don't own it, and so they're like, we would just want to make this stuff in house because like Sony has Sony Pictures, so like it's all under
True.
one brand.
They want the synergy.
Yeah, so you control it all top down, and you get all the profits from that as opposed to like going through somebody else. So I don't know, but it's Nintendo's like really branching out there for being kind of a smaller company in comparison to like Microsoft and Sony. They're really expanding because they got like the theme parks now, and they're turning into
They're blowing up.
Disney, but like the video game version of Disney.
I'm into it. I like it. I
Yeah.
prefer all this stuff to the Disney stuff. I don't want to be
For
a
sure.
Disney adult, but I would definitely go to Nintendo Land.
Yeah, like I'm not opposed to any of it. Like I love that they're branching out into movies, and would totally go to Super Nintendo World. So
Let's talk about it, Zach. The big news story of the month, of the last couple months.
I mean, the last several years, to be honest, because we've been waiting for so long for this. I think everybody
Skull and Bones
is super hyped.
is-
Oh wait, no, sorry, Skull and Bones. I thought we were talking about something else for a second. No, Skull and Bones.
Yes. So they released new footage of this. They had like an hour-long stream talking about all this, and it's it's happening. I don't think they gave a release date. Now that I'm
I was
looking
gonna
at it.
say I feel like to understand what they showed, we almost need to go back to whatever that E3 was, where they first kind of unveiled Skull and Bones and like
Mm.
showed some gameplay and kind of gave you an
Set the
idea of what it
scene,
was gonna
Zach.
be. Like
Lay it
you
out.
have to compare. Oh, I can't do it because I haven't gone back to watch that because who has gone back to watch that in the last several years? But like I was gonna say, you need to watch the new gameplay and compare it to the old one just to see what has changed in like the last several years that this game has gone completely dark and off the radar. But it's I don't know, it's basically that one Assassin's Creed game where you can the pirate one where you have the ship and then
That was the genesis of it. Like they were like, "Hey, everybody likes Black Flag. We need to make a game that is just ships." And then Rare was like, "Hey, we're gonna make what's the good one?
Sea of Thieves.
We're gonna make Sea of Thieves, and it's like gonna be not super
I feel
feature
like
rich,
I
but
don't know. It's like these ideas pop up. This is a thing that happens in Hollywood as well, where like they'll
yeah,
have an idea for like a type of story or world or something. Like this happened famously with uh Armageddon and Deep Impact, where they came out in the
yes,
same year, and you're just like what is going on? That like suddenly two different studios were like, hey, let's make this movie, and they just both took different approaches to that exact same idea.
mm,
The same thing happened with Skull and Bones and Sea of Thieves, where they're like, all right, let's do sort of the Destiny of pirate games, where it's
mm,
like an online persistent world that you can play with your friends. And there will be like some sense of progression there. And like Sea of Thieves didn't nail it out of the gate, but it definitely seemed like the more interesting one. And it's going strong. They're still doing that. And Skull and Bones just sort of, I don't know. They were like,
yeah.
maybe they were like, we're not super sure where we're going with this. And Sea of Thieves has a little bit stolen the limelight from us. So maybe we
I
just
think
need
so. I mean,
to.
they've consistently been doing content drops for Sea of Thieves. People are into it. And also, it's just like, just looking at this trailer right now, Sea of Thieves looks 1,000 times better. It's just like the art style they went with is beautiful. The water in Sea of Thieves is just gorgeous. And this just looks like generic to me. Like the going real world graphics just I don't think works for something like this.
It's one of those things
Um
where if you want to support it long term, if you do want to make a game that is like persistent online, sort of that shared world, game that you're going to support for like the next 10 years, it's definitely
mhm.
better to go with a particular art style like a Sea of Thieves because it doesn't age as poorly as
Yeah,
realistic graphics.
I agree. Like I mean Breath of the Wild is a great example. It's timeless. It always
Hmm.
looks good. And if you go back to like Twilight Princess,
Even Wind Waker.
well, yeah, Wind Waker looks great too.
Like you could
But
play
Twilight
Wind Waker
Princess,
today and be like, man, this game still looks great. But
it's just like you gotta have your own aesthetic. You can't just go like, how real can we make this look? Because it's just gonna look bad. It's
well,
gonna age.
and I don't think that the footage they showed of Skull and Bones visually looks that bad, but like for sure we're gonna get to like even just in a year from now, like it's gonna get to a point where people are better at taking advantage of the latest hardware with
Oh
the
yeah,
PS5 and the Xbox Series X. And then you're gonna have this game that it's been in development hell for like the last 5 years, and
yeah.
you're gonna go, this doesn't look as good. But
It has no charm. And Sea of Thieves has just like such good charm. Like getting treasure maps and playing with your friends and having just like the weird, even though there's like not that many weapons. I just feel like there's so much more to do in Sea of Thieves than this. Even though this has like, I don't know, I don't like the UI of this either. I have to say, um, it's weird. It's weird and bad, and I think they should just have given up.
this is one of those things where, to me, it feels like they missed their window. There was a time when I would have been interested in this, and that time has come and gone. So, and part of it is just like where I'm at as like an adult human being, and like not necessarily being as drawn to these like online shared world like games. And also like my sort of fascination with like the age of piracy and like that kind of thing has also waned over time. Like this would have been ideal a few years ago when even like the bad Pirates of the Caribbean movies were still coming out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true.
But I don't know. This is for somebody. Somebody will still like it. I think it's just like a weird novelty that it still exists and is still coming out. And I guess in that regard, like good on them for like the team for like not giving up and still like we always talk about the games that come out and they're a mess and then they just kind of flop and a year later they've like ended support. But like
right. That's a great point. I wonder how long this will have support for if it does flop.
Yeah, so I mean
Ubisoft is like notorious for cutting stuff like that, and you're just like not able to log into the servers anymore.
I mean, they are, but also like they've stuck with this thing for
yeah, it's crazy.
They've not killed it, so I don't know. Like, are we in a new age of Ubisoft where they're gonna support stuff long term? What were those meetings like? Like, Skull and Bones is still there. People are still working on it. Do we
there
kill
was
it?
Like an office, where people were just constantly working on it, I assume. But
at least 5 people.
Would love to see a documentary about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost tantamount to like Duke Nukem Forever.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be. I almost think watching a documentary about the making of Skull and Bones and just like the roller coaster ride of making the game is more interesting to me than the idea of sitting down to actually play it.
Yeah,
but
it's true.
I do think once it comes out, it will sort of explode. Maybe for that very reason, because it is such a meme that's like we almost can't believe that it still exists. So I feel like it will have its moment when it comes out. So,
what are your do you have nostalgia for RoboCop?
Not particularly. I feel like maybe the lesser version of like Blade Runner / Terminator. You know, and maybe I hold those two in higher regard than RoboCop, but it is like a cool old like 80s thing. So
they released some gameplay for RoboCop Rogue City, and I did not know this game was a thing, but is this a VR game?
Yeah, watching the video, it actually kind of looks like maybe that's what they're going for. I would say,
is cool.
I think the graphics don't look good.
Well, that would make sense to me if it is a VR game.
Yeah.
Especially if it's coming to like Quest.
Well, I think
Quest
it
2.
is not, because when they do cut to like first person mode, it doesn't have like the floaty guns that you would see if this were a VR title.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. It's weird, but I guess so. They did get Peter Weller is returning to be the likeness of RoboCop, who I love from Buckaroo Banzai. But this looks weird to me. If it isn't VR, then I don't know what's happening, because this looks like a game from maybe like 5 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, cool that they got Peter Weller. And
they got the IP.
I think it is. Oh, no. I was going to say maybe it's exclusive to PlayStation, but no. At the end of the screen, you can see it's coming to Steam and Xbox. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I'm that excited for this, but it'll depend on like they say it's a gameplay trailer, but it seems more cinematic to me, and you get like maybe a couple little snippets of like flashes of here's what the first person gameplay looks like. But I don't know. Maybe if I had more nostalgia for RoboCop, I would be more interested.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad to see Peter Weller, but other than that,
yeah,
this will probably be something I maybe watch someone play, but I probably won't pick it up.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's how long it is too. Like, is it going to be
question.
like a like a 30-hour like story-driven RPG style of shooter, or is this like an 8-hour like campaign and maybe it's got
Yeah.
some multiplayer stuff?
Let's talk about all these PlayStation
Yeah, so
trailers.
Sony also in the just within the last week released like a slew of new trailers, including one for Sea of Stars that's coming next year.
Looks great. Looks very cool. Very excited for
Yeah,
that.
I'm very excited about that one. They also said that Inscription is coming to PlayStation and I assume Xbox if it's not already
Interesting.
there.
People love that. I always meant to pick it up, but I just never have.
Yeah, and it is a card-based game, which I know is not your cup of tea.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I just I used to play a lot of Hearthstone, but after that, I just have kind of fallen off of card-based games for whatever reason.
The weird thing to me would be playing it with a controller, since
Yeah.
I played it on PC, which seems to make more sense in my brain of like for card-based games anyway.
Yeah, with the mouse. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
But cool that it's finally coming to console. There was another game that came out or trailer that they showed that's coming to PS4 and PS5 called Shim, I think.
This actually, I love the art style of this. It's one of those like you're a 2D person in a 3D world navigating around. I feel like there's been a couple of those. There was one called like I want to say like The Pedestrian, where you were a guy in a sign that had to go around to a bunch of different things in the 3D world.
Yeah.
But I like the look of this a lot. It's very cool aesthetic, and it looks like fun gameplay.
Yeah, it does have a very cool art style. And so basically, I don't know what you're playing as. You almost look like a shadow frog.
Yeah.
And
You're probably playing as Shim.
yeah, I mean, that's probably the character's name, but I don't know like what it is as far as like,
Yeah.
maybe it's nothing. It's a creature that does not exist in reality, but you're basically leaping from shadow to shadow. And so it doesn't seem clear to me like what the objective is other than like you're going from one place to another, but you can only move within shadows. And so like you'll be on like a city street and like the stop sign is like casting a shadow that you can jump in and move a little bit further forward, and then like a car will drive by and you can jump into that shadow and it'll just like pull you along until you find another shadow to jump to. But so interesting little idea. I didn't see when that was supposed to come out. Maybe they didn't give a release date, but seems like a cool game. And then another game that's long been waited for, that everybody's anticipating. Lord of the Rings Gollum got a gameplay trailer. We are not excited about this. We've talked about it a few times on the podcast, but you actually see some gameplay in this one, I guess. It just seems
a
like...
game for no one.
Yeah, it seems like it's a Lord of the Rings themed version of... what is that game? It's I played it on Game Pass earlier this year, and I for whatever reason cannot think of the name of it.
What's it about?
The one where it's like old stealthing around, and there are rats everywhere.
Oh, Plague Tale.
Plague Tale. Why can I not think of Plague Tale? Anyway, it's like a Lord of the Rings themed version of that, but instead of having multiple characters you talk to, it's just Gollum, and you're sneaking around, and it seems like maybe you're not really doing much in terms of combat, but you can like throw stuff around to like make people move out of the way, and then you keep stealthing. But that's basically what it seems like to me. But I don't know. Lord of the Ring, I guess there is an Amazon show coming up, but Gollum's not going to be in that.
No.
I was going to say the window for this game has long been closed, so
not looking forward to this. What is Steel Rising? I don't think I've heard of that.
Steel Rising, they've had some trailers for this. I think it seems like a Souls-like game where it's I don't know what the time period for this would be, but it's like future past kind of a thing where you're sort of like a robotic character. I feel like we talked about this on a previous podcast.
Yes, we did, because I thought it was that Pinocchio game, but it's not.
Yeah. I forget the
This
name
looks
of the
crazy, actually.
developer. But
Yeah, you're like a Victorian robot.
yes, Victorian era robot. And it seems like the combat looks kind of Souls-like to me.
Yeah,
Um,
I would agree with that.
they released like gameplay previously that kind of made me think that it was not going to be as polished as like a Souls-like game, because it seemed like maybe the
Mm.
frame rate was pretty rough, but this
It almost seems
gameplay,
more like a stylish action game to me, as opposed to a Souls game, because there's not much rolling happening. It seems like it's more like dodging around and having crazy attacks with your dual swords.
yeah, but the I guess it could be that as well. But it looks the what I was trying to say is I think this latest trailer makes it look more polished than the previous gameplay that I saw. So
Mm.
that's good. Yeah, it could be interesting. But I feel like when they announced this initially and we talked about it, I can't remember who said it, but it seemed like they were going for like kind of a challenging, almost Souls-like experience. But maybe you're right. Maybe it is a little bit more just like action and combo based. But this one's one that I'm maybe keeping an eye out for. Maybe it'll be a game that I watch somebody play. But cool art style. Like the different enemies that you're fighting have some pretty cool design to them. So, interesting. What if I told you that Stray is a game that's coming up soon and people are kind of excited about it, and that you can actually buy a physical copy of it? I would have to look up where, but one of those stores, one of those like stores.
EB Games.
No. What is
That was in my old mall when I was a child.
EB Games? Isn't that?
Electronic Boutique.
Oh yeah, I forgot about EB Games, because I know in Canada EB Games is still a thing, but it's like
Really?
it's that's like the version of GameStop in Canada is EB Games.
It's coming out on Tuesday. I'm very excited for it. I will be picking it up on PS4. And you can buy a backpack in a special edition, a Stray backpack for your cat. And I probably will not buy this because I don't think my cat would like this. I have been trying to figure out if I should get her a stroller so I can like walk her around the neighborhood. But she doesn't really like to be inside things for whatever reason. She's not one of those cats who likes to burrow.
Now I've
But
always
this is a
wondered that
cool
about
thing.
cats. Do you walk your cat? Because I feel like
I
it's a
want to.
weird thing when
It is a weird
you're
thing, unfortunately. I
outside
feel like
and you see somebody walking a cat like they would walk a
yeah,
dog on a
I feel like
leash.
I'd get strange looks. But if I had a stroller, like a covered stroller, people would just be like, "Oh, he's walking a child." But in fact, I have a cat
But
in
when
the
you get
stroller.
closer to say, "Oh, hi, child," you're like, "Oh, that's a cat." Never mind.
This does look cool though, and I actually, man, I was at a mall like a month or two ago, and a kid was walking around with a backpack that just had like 3 birds in it and a window into the backpack. And
What?
I was like, that's crazy. But this is a similar thing where, I mean, this makes sense maybe if you're traveling with your cat, if you're like in an airport perhaps, or you just want to like ferry it from one house to another, or maybe you live in like New York City and you have to take it to the vet or something. But yeah, I'm into like cool custom cat stuff, so I thought I would put this on, and it looks cool. I'm excited for the Stray game, I have to say.
Yeah, and I was looking for it because I could not remember which store had it. It's I Am 8-Bit has the physical copy that you can buy of Stray along with a vinyl soundtrack. Pre-orders are up now for this thing. So if you are more
It's
of
like
a collector,
$185 though, just FYI.
well, you can get the Stray edition for $44, or the vinyl soundtrack for 41, or it might come like bundled together for more expensive. But yeah, so if physical copies are a thing that you do. Oh, are you talking about the backpack price?
I was talking about the backpack.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, I was gonna say the physical copy of the game is like $45, and it comes with let me see here, a poster, art cards,
Art
uh,
cards.
region-free physical disc, and it looks like some sort of patch. I don't know, but yeah, I always like to find the physical copies of stuff if you can, but you probably have to wait on it. You won't be able to play it right away, so maybe just buy the digital version. Speaking of things that I literally just found as I was looking for this physical copy on the store, Strictly Limited is going to have a physical copy of that Overboard game from last year that I played and really liked. And we
Yeah, I
talked
remember
about
you talking about that.
Yeah, it had a cool art style. It's sort of a point and click adventure type of a game that was really cool. And apparently they're doing a physical copy of that game and the developer's previous game, which is 80 Days, which I have not played. And you'll get them bundled together for like $30, or I guess this is £30. This is the UK price, I guess. Because I think Strictly Limited is in the UK, but pretty cool. I don't know if I will order this, but I did like that game a lot, so I'm a little bit tempted. But anyway, should we get into what we've been playing and watching?
Yes. Have you? I have two things I want to talk about, but before I do that, do you have anything that you've been taking a look at?
No. Lately, I have been searching for car videos online. So all of my
Yes.
YouTube recommends are car videos right now. So I started watching Top Gear on Netflix. So like the new Top Gear with the new hosts, which I had not seen before. So that's the only new thing I've been watching. And then
How is that?
it's not bad. It's better than I thought it was going to be. Like, so they had like an initial round of new hosts that I feel like included Matt LeBlanc from Friends, and that was just like
Oh.
weird and awkward and didn't work. And so they like blew it up and got 3 new hosts again. And I think the new hosts are much better and much more well liked than that initial round of new hosts that they grabbed. But yeah, it's not bad. I kind of am enjoying the whatever the latest season was that they had on Netflix. Other than that, I've still been playing Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, which
Yep. Yeah.
is a fun game. It's got like, I really like how you can kind of play it strategically, and like at the start of like the battle you have like the map, and so it's a little bit grid based, like you know, a Fire Emblem game would be. And then you can like select one of your characters and you're like, okay, I want you to go east and take this stronghold over here, and I want this other character to go west and take the stronghold over there. And then like once you jump into the game, you're just running around, and it's like combo based hack and slash, you know, combat. And you are like, you get little objectives that pop up, like defend so and so, or you know, take out these special enemies that just came into the map. And you'll have like one of the named characters from like one of the other houses that will pop up now and then. You'll have to take them out, and sometimes you can recruit them as well. And like I just played through a chapter section where like one of the leaders of the 3 houses, like we were fighting against him and like some of the other named characters from that house, and he like I guess made an escape, and we took down one of his like top commanders or whatever. And they had this little like moment, this cinematic moment there at the end where he was like all bummed about that losing that person. And I was just like, if I had played with that house in Fire Emblem 3 Houses, like this moment would have really hit pretty hard. But yeah, so I think they're doing a good job of carrying the characters forward and doing sort of a different thing with them. And then you go back to like the camp, and you can like build up the like expand the different things that you have at the camp, and you can do like some of the life sim stuff where you're building up the relationships. And I don't know, I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time with it, and I don't know exactly how far I am in it. Maybe halfway, maybe a little over halfway, but
So it is making like story progression things that actually matter. Like it's canon, basically.
so that's a good question. I don't know that there is necessarily canon, because the first game you have the three different houses, and if you, I think there are four different ways to go with it, and I guess sort of spoilers for Three Houses, which has been out for a long time. But you can side with any of the three houses, and then there's like a time jump, and like the Edelgard, the leader of one house, is like the commander of this empire, and she like seemingly goes rogue, and like she blows everything up, and there it becomes this big war of the three houses. And at the center of that, you have like the monastery and sort of the church. And so you can choose to side either with her or with the church, or you can, of course, if you're playing as one of the other houses, like the experience is going to be pretty different going through it, depending on which side you've sort of aligned with. And so in this game, it seems like it's maybe going through that as well, but like the main character you play as in Three Houses is sort of a bad guy. But the way I think it's going, I think you can actually recruit him. So it's possible, or her, I guess, depending on who you want to play. So it's interesting. It does feel different than playing through Three Houses, story-wise, but I don't know. It's an interesting like sort of alternate like twist on those events. So it's pretty cool.
Zach, have I ever talked to you about the Orville before?
You have. You've recommended it, and I still have not watched it for no good reason.
It's great. It started out kind of not good because it was more of like a comedy for the first like season maybe. And they've slowly been removing all of that comedy. And they just started a new season that's exclusively on Hulu, and they renamed it basically. It's now called like the Orville New Horizons or something. But it's not a comedy anymore. It's just straight up a TNG like drama thing, and it's like very good, which is crazy. Like it's just like a good space show that is basically Star Trek, and it has like interesting moral and like ethical dilemmas every episode, and it's like it doesn't have any of that weird comedy they tried to interject or inject into like the first and maybe the second season. But it's just like a really good show, and it's like crazy. I feel like no one is talking about it, but this new season of The Orville, I am not all the way caught up yet, but I just started watching it this past week. I think there's been like 7 episodes so far.
What streaming service did you say this was on?
It's on Hulu. It's a Hulu exclusive. But it's great, and I love it, and it's very good. The other thing that I watched last night at 10 p.m. Was The Rehearsal. Have you heard of that? It's a new show by Nathan Fielder on HBO, the guy who made Nathan For You. And it's crazy. It's like so Nathan For You was a show, for those unfamiliar, where he's just like a weird guy who goes to a business owner and is like, I have a weird idea to like improve your business. And it always is just, it's overly weird. And it's just like the very first episode is he's I think he like, man, what was the pilot is very good, but it's just random stuff. Like there's a lady in one episode who owns an antique shop, but no one's going in there to buy antiques. So he's like, well, what we should do is like stack all your antiques super close together and then someone will definitely walk by it and break an antique, and then they'll have to buy it. And then he meets a guy at a bar and has him like put on one of those inflatable sumo wrestler outfits, and just like has him walk by this antique store, and he's like, man, look at these antiques, you should like go in there and take a look. And the guy who's like a little drunk is like, okay. And then he breaks a bunch of stuff and has to buy it. But it's just also, it's so weird. It's like a weird thing. And this Rehearsal, I guess, is born from that show where they would come up with these weird scenarios to put people in, and then they would just role play what could happen just for like to figure out what they should do. And that's kind of what this entire show is. It's he finds someone who is gonna do something, and then he does a lot of work to help them rehearse doing it, to see if they actually want to do it, or like to help them do it. And the first episode, this guy has lied about having a master's degree, and he is afraid to tell this one person on his trivia team. And so Nathan Fielder like completely recreates the bar they're going to meet in a warehouse, like down to like the like a semi-working pizza oven, and like what like ripped chairs and stuff, and like art on the walls. And they just like role play it for like weeks, and then it culminates in him actually doing it. But it's a very weird and surreal show that I think everyone should take a look at, and I recommend it.
Yeah, I remember Nathan For You being a thing, and I was like, I should watch this because it seems really funny. And then
it's very
never
good.
got around to it.
I would definitely recommend Nathan For You. I don't know where it is these days. It's maybe on HBO, because it seems like he has a relationship with HBO, because that John Wilson show, How To, I think he produces, and so I think like all of his stuff is just on HBO now, How To is also a very good show, which everybody should watch.
Yeah, I need to continue my Twin Peaks marathon.
Oh, yeah.
That watch that I'm doing. It's been a little while. I haven't watched any this week, but that's a great show, and I would like to watch the Orville, but I also don't want to have to subscribe to an additional subscription service.
And I will say the first couple episodes are difficult to wade through. I almost stopped watching it a bunch of times, but you just have to like get past them trying to make jokes, and then you get to the meaty episodes where it's like old school TNG, where like there's like a courtroom episode, or there's like a dilemma. They get to a planet and there's like an ethical dilemma they have to solve, and they kind of look at both sides of the issue. It's just like that classic TNG formula that I love so much, but it's in a modern setting.
Yeah, I'm into it. I've heard good things about it, and I would definitely watch it. It's just maybe I will see if I can do like a trial and see if I can marathon it. How many seasons are there?
I think this is the third season, I want to say.
So that's
it took
doable,
a long
then.
break between 2 and 3. Yeah. And again, you're going to want to stop in the first couple episodes, but you just got to push through.
That was how I felt about Parks and Rec as well.
Yeah. The first season of Parks and Rec is not great.
That's why I wanted to stop on that. And then eventually, like partway through the second season, that one hooked me. But
yeah. Yeah, the first season, they were kind of still figuring everything out, I think. And then people really came into their own and they realized what was going on, and Adam Scott showed up. But, yeah. Some good shows lately.
One thing we didn't talk about that I completely forgot to put in the show notes was, have you heard about this Kirby's Dream Buffet?
Yes, it's like a Fall Guys thing, right?
That was how people were pitching it online, where it's supposed to... It's just like a party game where I guess you can run around as Kirby's. And yeah, maybe it is a little Fall Guys-ish. I never played Fall Guys, which I guess is free to play on Switch now as well, but...
Yeah, I played it when it came out and it was first a thing, because I think it was on like PlayStation Plus or something. And it was fine. It was fine for like maybe 2 hours of entertainment, but I lost interest pretty quickly.
Would you be more interested in a Kirby version of it?
Maybe. Here's something else I didn't put in the show notes, but my girlfriend and I just played and completed that Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which we really enjoyed.
Yeah, did you go through all the challenge levels once you beat the final boss?
We're in the process of that right now, actually.
I got through some of those. I didn't finish it. I should go back and play the rest of those because
some of them are pretty difficult, actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say like when it first came out, it was like hot on the heels of like Elden Ring, and so everybody was like, what is this kids game that's like not challenging at all? And I was like, I don't know, keep playing because there's like some stuff towards the end of that game that's a little bit more challenging. But yeah, it's not as hard as Elden Ring, obviously, but like
you're an Elden Lord, Zach.
It's true. And what would be the Kirby version of that?
A strawberry cheesecake? I don't know.
Puff Lord.
Puff Lord?
Yeah. He's kind of a puffy guy, but anyway, I think that's going to do it for this episode. It's a full episode, huh?
It is.
Well, we will catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.